Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 14th Annual Palestine Book Awards. It is a true honor to be here with you tonight among our shortlisted authors, academics, editors, publishers, translators, and friends, all gathered to celebrate the power, resilience, and beauty of Palestinian literature. The works that we honor tonight are more than books. They are acts of resistance, and they carry within them the memory, the struggle, and the unyielding spirit of a people who continue to write, to dream, and to exist boldly on their own terms. Now, the past 2 years in Gaza will haunt us forever. None of us will ever be the same, nor should we be. And nothing about our world will ever be the same, nor should it be. But what we have built here, what we continue to build, through our words, our books, our stories, must burn in our hearts and move us to action until we breathe our last breath. Gaza has been our best teacher. It has been our educator. It has taught us to love, to care, to feel, to be alert, and we cannot let this moment pass. Because they will run out of ways to erase us, but we will never run out of ways to exist. Not as long as we write, not as long as we speak, and not as long as we insist on telling our stories. And the Palestine Book Awards exists for this very reason, to protect our narrative, to honor our memory, and to carry Palestine forward into new stories, new generations, and a future that dismantles every system of oppression. So this evening, we are celebrating outstanding literature and scholarly works that illuminate Palestinian history, culture, identity, and resilience. And I am pleased to share that this year actually saw a record number of submissions, the most in the awards history, reflecting the growing global engagement with Palestinian narratives. And among these exceptional submissions, some works stand out not only for their literary merit, but also for the enduring legacy of their creators. And so this year, we are deeply honored to pay tribute to the late Dr. Rifat Al-Arir, a beloved writer and academic who was martyred during the genocide in Gaza. His powerful voice lives on through his writing, and his book is among those shortlisted for this year's awards. So let us take a moment together, a moment of silence, or recite Surah Al-Fatiha in memory of Dr. Rifat Al-Arir and all our Palestinian martyrs who were killed during this genocide. Thank you. We are also privileged to welcome Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta as our keynote speaker this evening, a figure many of us hold in deep admiration. His work and his advocacy embody the very spirit of perseverance and humanity that this initiative seeks to honor. And tonight, he will share his insights as part of this powerful program. His voice, like those we celebrate tonight, speaks truth to power, reminding the world that the struggle for justice is also a struggle for life, for dignity, and for hope. And to introduce myself, my name is Layan Mohammed, and I'm delighted to be your host this evening. I've been attending the Palestine Book Awards ever since I was 16 years old, and every year has been more inspiring than the last, and I'm deeply grateful to the Middle East Monitor for inviting me to host this year's awards. It's been wonderful to see so many familiar faces over nearly a decade, seeing people like the amazing Dr. Victoria Britton, Dr. Dawood Abdullah, Dr. Sui Ang, and the incredible team at the Middle East Monitor. And here's a little fun fact. The Middle East Monitor was actually the first outlet to report on my story 10 years ago as the 15-year-old schoolgirl who won a speaking competition on Palestine titled Birds Not Bombs, only to be censored for daring to hope for freedom. And so some of you here may remember that and recognize me as that young British Palestinian activist, and others may as of recently know me as West Streeting's worst nightmare. But that's a story for another day, and maybe one day I'll even write a book about it. Tonight, however, is about celebrating stories far bigger, honoring the creativity and vision of our shortlisted authors and the extraordinary journey of the Palestine Book Awards itself. And so this evening, we celebrate not only the books, but the dedication, the imagination, and conviction of the remarkable individuals who bring them to life. So let's take a moment to show our appreciation. A huge round of applause for all our shortlisted authors this evening. Every single book recognized tonight expands the space for Palestinian voices in global literature, and every one of you here attending plays a vital role in keeping that space alive, keeping that space vibrant and growing. And so together, let's celebrate these voices, honor these stories, and carry this energy forward. And now, to get this program started, it is my pleasure to pass the floor on to the director of the Middle East Monitor for some opening remarks. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Dr. Dawood Abdallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure and great delight to welcome you all on behalf of Middle East Monitor to the 14th Annual Award Ceremony. I must take this opportunity to do the customary courtesies by thanking the authors, their publishers, agents, the judges, as well as the staff at Middle East Monitor and the volunteers, our former Judge Victoria, and all those who have contributed to making this event a success and reality tonight. We have gathered here tonight at a time of great challenge, a period of darkness, pain, and suffering. And it is truly an achievement that our authors who are here tonight had the strength, the vision, the discipline, and commitment to produce the work that they have to be among the shortlisted books here. As you've heard, that number was 83 this year, the highest we've ever had. And all of these books in their various categories, whether it is in the memoir, academic, literature, they all tell a story, a single story, a story of Palestine, its people, and their struggle for freedom and self-determination. That's the story. But they have people who have written about this, who have told this story, and some of them we honor tonight have paid a price. Two of them that we honor tonight have paid a price. You've heard of Dr. Rifat, and then there was, of course, Ghassan Kanafani. That's the price Palestinians pay for their liberation, for their freedom, for the right to live in their land, you see. And it is because of this we are here to honor them. Their struggles bring forth before us the reality of education, its importance, why it is important for generations of Palestinians to preserve their identity, you see. And we've seen that the destruction and the attacks on educational institutions, on hospitals, on universities, on media institutions, the killing of doctors, the killing of academics, is not a post-October 23 phenomena. Started a long time ago. And some of you would remember the events in Beirut in 1982, the sacking and the looting of the research center and the Palestine Institute of Palestine Studies, where documents, archives, books were taken away back to Israel. That was in 1982. And one of the individuals who have worked for the preservation and the continuation of that legacy, Professor Walid Khalidi, we are honoring him tonight with a Lifetime Achievement Award, because the Institute continues to function, to exist, as it did before in Beirut. But Beirut has another story which I want to share with you. It's a personal one. I visited Shatila camp several years ago. It was one afternoon. It was not yet dusk, but it was late afternoon, and I entered the house of a friend in that camp. And as I entered the room, I noticed there were no windows in the room. And in that dark room, there was a boy sitting on the floor. There were no chairs. He was sitting on the floor, studying with a candlelight. And I said to myself, he didn't curse the dark. He lit a candle. He lit a candle. And that's the spirit of Palestine. That's the spirit of all the authors who have come here to grace us with their presence and to share with us their knowledge and expertise. And I say that you, in this dark time, this time of pain and criminality, and every evil you can think about, you have shone a light. You have shone a light that will become a beacon, you see, and whatever the outcome of tonight's proceedings are, whether you are a winner or not, in our eyes and in the eyes of the Palestinian people and for future generations, you have shone a light that will be a beacon for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dawood Abdullah. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce someone who truly needs no introduction. Still, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge his remarkable contributions and pay tribute to him. His work and dedication are known to many. Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta is a British-Palestinian plastic and reconstructive surgeon. He has worked as a war surgeon in Yemen, Iraq, Syria, South Lebanon, and during all the 4 wars in Gaza. And as many of us have seen on our screens over the past 2 years, he has also worked in and witnessed the horrors in Gaza during this genocide. Dr. Ghassan has set the tone for all of us, and I've personally found so much of my own determination come from watching him advocate for justice upon his return from Gaza. And I know that I am not alone in saying that we have all gained so much from his presence, his guidance, and his example over the past 2 years. His work spans medicine, activism, and humanitarian efforts, and his life is a testament to the difference one person can make. So without further ado, please join me in giving a very warm and heartfelt welcome to our keynote speaker for this evening, Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity. As we enter the second phase of the genocide, I think it's incumbent upon us to try to critically appraise what we have learned from the last 2 years and what we need to do and change and move forward so that the attempt at erasing our people is not successful, and the sacrifices of our people in Gaza do not go in vain. And so this is a talk of bullet points of what I have picked up over the last 2 years. And as I figure out what we need to do moving forward, these are my conclusions. First and foremost, I think we've all figured out that despite the AI, despite the technology, the laser-guided missiles, the quadcopter drones that can follow you inside the hospital grounds. Genocide remains a very primitive enterprise, still requiring its formative parts, as it did in India, in Ireland, in the Americas. Genocide needs a famine, and we've seen the necessity of manufacturing a famine for the genocidal killing machine to work at its best pace. Genocide needs epidemics, and we've seen how Israel manufactured the conditions for epidemics in Gaza through the destruction of water, sewage, treatment plants, the destruction of the infrastructure, destruction of people's homes so that they live in overcrowded displacement camps and schools, and killed the very doctors that were supposed to be treating them. Genocide needs land clearance, and most people in Gaza have had to move over 9 times during this genocide. And that continuous movement is a critical component of the destruction of a people. The other issue is that even in the 21st century, looking all the way back from the pirate Columbus and the beginning of genocide of the Americas, until today, it seems that it's God who tells them to commit the genocide. Whether it's the conquistadors of Latin America or the settlers of Palestine, it's God that has directed them in the genocidal efforts. A critical component of the genocide is also genocidal denial. It seems that denying the genocide is taking place is in itself part of the genocidal project. Gaslighting of the victims, censoring the very perpetrators of the genocide as they articulate their genocidal desires and genocidal plans is a critical component of the genocide. And then, at the end, but most critically, genocide needs racism. The racialization of the victim that creates a level of ungrievability that allows the killing of tens of thousands of children, allows turning Gaza into the world's largest cohort of pediatric amputations ever known to man, is a critical part of the genocidal project. And part of the racism is the need for the violence to be performative. Israel, during this genocidal war, many a time performed violence and violent rituals or ritualization of violence in a way that went beyond military and security needs, because it was critical, and it is critical to the genocidal project, especially the settler colonial genocidal project, that the settler projects his omnipotence. And that performance of violence, the leaving of premature children on a stretcher to be found dead by ICRC teams in the pediatric hospitals, was critical. Bombing tents with 1.5-ton bombs is critical, not to the military part of the genocide, but to the performative violence that is critical to that projection of omnipotent power that is the obsession of settler colonial projects. And at the end, what we've seen from Trump's plan and the ceasefire is that indigenous population reservations are also a critical component in Gaza, as they were in North America, in order to continue the elimination of those survivors quietly and in ways that last beyond the need for demographic threats to be dealt with. And as we saw in the United States and in Canada, residential schools continued to wipe out indigenous children well into the 80s, and the same was happening in Australia. And so it seems that that settler colonial genocidal Rubicon, once crossed, can never be undone. The other thing that we've learned is that colonialism remains a formative part of European political identity, and with it, its genocidal instinct. European political identity formed through the union of the Spanish princelets happened at the same time as the pirate Columbus set off to the Americas. And it seems that even in the 21st century, there is colonialism resonates very strongly in the approach towards the other in this world. We have watched over the last 2 years Gaza lighting up the power grid in the globe. We have not just seen it light up the way power permeates from the center of the empire into the smallest institution, the smallest, most isolated university, football team, football association, club, media outlet. And that lighting up has filled many people with horror as they've discovered the fallacy of this idea of civil society. The destruction of organized labor that happened in the 80s and 90s has left society with very few institutions that were capable of mounting an organized resistance to this genocidal project. Universities, many of whom conceived with slavery money and then fed with colonial plunder, remained true to their original idea. The other interesting thing, traveling around from Ireland to South Africa, that we've learned is that history and its major events never disappear, but lie dormant to be reawakened by major events. In Ireland, academics and activists are rereading their own history of famine and their own history of ethnic cleansing, sold to them as crop failure and an attempt to emigrate for a better life. In South Africa, South Africa's very own Oslo process has left apartheid present in everything but name. And we see how our comrades in South Africa reread this genocidal instinct or the inevitability of the genocidal moment to be forever present in settler colonial projects, and reread the reformist moment as a critical part of settler colonial projects' need to survive, rather than a declaration of an end of a political era. But most of all, we see this for what it is. It is a United States, British, German, French, Italian, and Dutch genocide. And the settler colony was just a tool for carrying out this genocidal project. But unfortunately, we've seen how the Arab masses are currently historically absent. The lack of a sense of historical and political agency, which transforms people's emotions and beliefs into public action, has been present by its very absence in the Arab world. We have also witnessed how the Sykes-Picot map, which was drawn creating these Arab states, envisaged Israel at the very heart of this system. And that Israel, rather than protecting these regimes, as we have been raised on the myth that Israel is there to keep these regimes in power, we've discovered that it is these very regimes whose job it is to protect Israel and maintain the settler colony's safety. We have seen how overland trade routes were created so that Israeli goods remain on the shelves. We have seen multi-billion-dollar deals with Arab states maintaining the Israeli economy during the genocide. We have seen drones being shot down from the sky in protection of the genocidal project. We have also seen that the structural changes brought about as a result of the Oslo process and the collusion and collaboration of Palestinian political elites in the West Bank and inside 1948 have so damagingly altered the Palestinian society's ability to defend itself or rise up to the challenge of a genocide, that these societies now stand at the precipice of their own genocidal erasure without the communal tools to fight this project. We need to understand that after October 2023, the Zionist project is in a state where it wants to end the conflict rather than continue to manage the conflict. And we see that in Lebanon, we see that in Syria, where despite the supine acquiescence of the new regime, Israeli tanks still occupy a third of the country, 40% of its drinking water, and continue to bomb Syria. Moving forward, we have to acknowledge that the genocide has also created a crisis of existence in the Zionist project. Stripped down to its bare essence, from its economic, political, and social and intellectual veneer, Zionism stands reduced to its basic need, that of eliminating the indigenous population. What we have witnessed, and in the last couple of days witnessed in Guardian articles, is that liberal Zionism is trying to reinvent itself, to rehumanize a genocidal project. If one reads Beit Salim's Our Genocide, the title claims to be an admission of guilt, but the report itself reads as a racist colonialist document rooted in liberal Zionism's racism towards Palestinians. Palestinians will now be asked to take part in this project to save liberal Zionism. Through two-state projects and one-state projects, Palestinians will be called upon to salvage what's left of a genocidal ideology. It is the very failure of Palestinian political and intellectual class to foresee this genocidal moment as being structural to settler colonialism. Having gone down the road of international relation assessment rather than a proper analysis of settler colonial action, means that we came to this moment unprepared as Palestinians. The role of these intellectuals is now to reread Palestinian history, to see where we can go, and most importantly, to recenter the struggle of the Palestinian people as primarily an anti-Zionist struggle, and not to go down the rabbit holes of political geography and half-baked projects that retain the ideological machinery that produced the genocide. But for me, as a health professional, this genocide will also stand as testament to a war like no other, where hospitals were at the center of the battlefield. Humanity has never seen a war which has been so fought inside the emergency departments and the operating rooms and the corridors, the way this war was fought. And our brave colleagues, the health workers of the system, the health system in Gaza, stand as the first attempt where a people defended itself against genocidal erasure with the help of its health system in rejecting the politics of death through the politics of healing and the politics of life. We've also seen the end of the sanctity of Israel in Western discourse. Everything from South Park to basic discourse. Israel can now be poked at, made fun of, criticized. The viciousness, and I can attest to the viciousness of attempts by the Zionist lobby at silencing those who criticize Israel, reflects that shattering of sanctity of the Israeli narrative. And that is what we need to continue to work on. Levinas, the Lithuanian philosopher who had survived the Holocaust, said that it is the experience of evil that has the potential to awaken the soul to the horrors of evil, turning it into an expectation of good. And we have seen that with families in their thousands coming out every second Saturday, defending the right of Palestinian families to live, that they have never seen, that they have very little ideological commitment with, but because they are outraged and they see their humanity in the humanity of these families. What Gaza means for the rest of the world speaks to global capital's desire to speak purely in terms of violence. Global capital no longer feels the need to compromise with liberalism, as it did after the Second World War and as it did as part of the Cold War struggle. The epistemic violence of the Trump administration, the linguistic violence, the political violence, the ideological violence, and the military violence is the language in which global capital will address the world's population. Gaza's people, the Palestinian people who live in Gaza, are a surplus population who had to be erased by global capital. Other surplus populations will also need to be erased in very similar ways. Whether they are in Kashmir or Brazil or Nairobi, surplus populations have to be eliminated. The very same government that supported the genocide of the Palestinians in Gaza, the Labour government, has also brought in probably the most draconian laws to shorten the lifespan of disabled people in this country. This social murder, the reduction of surplus population's life expectancy intentionally through the withdrawal of welfare services, through the withdrawal of much needed health services, is part of global capital's attempt at ridding itself of surplus populations, whether they are politically surplus in the global south or economically surplus in the global north. So, as always, we strive for the unity of struggle. And so I'd like to always end with the battle cry from our comrades in Frelimo in Mozambique. A luta continua, victoria acerta. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ghassan, for sharing your invaluable reflections. Your contribution has added great depth to today's program, and we are deeply grateful. And I'm sure your words will stay with us all. Now we will move on to our next segment, the awards presentation. This year marks the longest shortlist in the history of the Palestine Book Awards, offering a richly varied mix of fiction, memoir, history, and media critique, each contributing powerfully to a deeper understanding of how Gaza and Palestine have changed the world. Each award will be presented by one of our amazing judges, and so to get this wonderful evening started, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage Dr. Ashjan Ajour, a judge and previous winner of the Palestine Book Awards, to present our very first award of the night, the Academic Award.
Thank you. Good evening. So tonight we are honored to present the Academic Award to Nasser Abu Rahma for his book, Time Beneath the Concrete. His work illuminates Palestinian refugee camps not only as a site of disposition, but as spaces where time, memory, and resistance are contested, and the future remains open. So, though Abu Rahma is unable to join us today, but we celebrate his profound contribution to scholarship, please join me in congratulating Nasser Abu Rahma, the recipient of Academic Book Award for this year. Okay.
To continue our celebration of excellence, I'm delighted to invite to the stage Judge Firas Abu Hilal to present the second award of the evening, the Translation Award.
Assalamu alaikum. For many years of this award, one of the categories was dedicated to the translation of Palestinian books and literature. This category has helped in bringing the Palestinian voice to global platforms. This year, the award of translation goes to Hazem Jamjoom for translating Maya Abu al-Hayat book, No One Knows Their Blood Type. By the way, last year also Jamjoom was the winner for translating an important book for Ghassan Kanafani, The Revolution of Palestine in 1936 to 1939. Thank you. تفضل طبعا. انت اللي لازم تحكي مش احنا. تفضل.
Thank you, Palestine Book Awards. My understanding was if we win, we read a little bit from the book. And I feel with Dr. Ang and Dr. Ghassan here and some others, this is a bit of an atypical moment in this book, which is very much kind of, well, I'm just going to read it. But just so you know, if you do get this book to read, this stands out as a moment in the book. It's not how the rest of it goes. And it takes place just after the Israelis have occupied Beirut. They left on the morning of that last day of August. The television brought us their two-dimensional likenesses, waving from the decks of ships that disappeared into the horizon, salting the sea with their tears. I was struck by sadness seeing children play with their fathers' assault rifles and mothers crying over what the men had left behind. They had left carrying nothing but, as Wafiqa described it, sailors' bags filled with their most valued possessions. It made me think of our house in Hamra. What had Abu Sa'id done with our furniture and our things? I asked around about how to get to Amman. Ahmed said it was impossible. He knew what I was planning. I decided to go to Selma. Maybe her husband could help me arrange it. Maybe I could go by land through Syria. If I got some money together, maybe someone could smuggle me across the border from there. Wafiqa did not stop crying. Her brother was one of the fighters on the ships, and she'd lost the other in the siege. She kept saying that the Palestinians had been orphaned once again, slapping her cheeks and wailing, "They'll claw us to shreds now that the men are gone." I pitied her. For the first time since I'd met her, her screeching cries did not bother me. I cried with her. I cried and I wailed, and my mother did the same, and so did my father, and so did Ahmed. 10 days cooped up indoors again. The shelling is intense, the streets empty. News arrives that the Israelis have taken over every street in West Beirut. They are combing the city and its camps for Palestinian fighters. We pack ourselves into the windowless basement of Ahmed's building. It takes particular effort to put up with Wafiqa slapping her cheeks and screaming her worries. She has lost all means of communicating with her family. We choke on the smell of shit and sweat, blocking our nostrils with pieces of cloth that had been Ahmed's undershirts in a previous life. Water is only for drinking. Food comes from cans that don't require heating. Ahmed and my father do nothing but play backgammon, and we suffer through the shouting matches that follow every game, no matter who wins and who loses. I'm going to skip a little bit. I leave with Wafiqa. We cross from Tariq al-Jadida to the Arab University Road without seeing a single car pass by. We see a group of women and children, each dragging a drum of water in one hand and bundles of bread in the other. Wafiqa asks them about the road, and they tell her that there are Israeli soldiers at the edge of the camp and on Corniche al-Mazra, but that the soldiers aren't blocking anyone who tries to pass. Wafiqa asks me to remind her to get water containers from her mother's house. We can fill them at the well on the way back. We reach the entrance to the camp. In the distance, teams of medics and journalists are moving about. A journalist walks towards us, her shoulders slumped over a camera dangling from her neck beside a card emblazoned with the Swedish flag. She looks distant, devastated, and grabs at the nearest wall to remain upright. I summon my English. What? What? Wafiqa, suddenly speechless, presses her hand to her heart, bracing herself for certain horror. Her only concern is to reach the grocery shop her mother had set up in the middle of the camp after Wafiqa's father passed. The deeper we walk into the camp, the more it smells like a chicken harvester, and the louder the din of the buzzing flies. We near a group walking ahead of us. Wafiqa disappears into their ranks, more agitated with every step. I hear her scream, and there are foreigners crying, and someone steps out of the group and retches right beside my sandal. And I enter the fray, shoving away those around me to find Wafiqa pulling at her hair, rocking like a pendulum, gaping at a mound of corpses, women, men, and children piled up on top of the other, hands, legs, heads. Wafiqa can make out the tiny head below the sliced open belly of a woman in her 40s. "Jannah," she screams, "Jannah," and she attacks the eviscerated corpse, grabbing the shoulder of a body on top of it and pulling, hurling that body to the ground and screaming. It was a girl no more than 10 years old. Her dress is shredded and I can see everything below her waist. Wafiqa pulls at another body and then another, but the corpses are weighed down by death. Death, a swarm of flies, a greedy murmuration around mouths and ears, crunching at pupils open and glaring from eyes that saw what cannot be born. Jannah is somehow pulled out from beneath the pile of neighbors she'd yet to meet. She is or was the same age as Jumana, barely a year and a half. Wafiqa's sister Maryam and I had given birth the same week. Wafiqa holds the child to her chest, dried blood and flies covering the infant's face, her head hanging limp off her shoulders like a doll broken in a fight between playmates. I'll stop here, but this is a story that just has been our story. In the 30s, in the 40s, in 56 in Gaza, in the early 70s in Gaza, in Lebanon in the 80s, and so on and so forth. With the kind of betrayal of the people who are supposed to have our backs and to come and stand beside us, and a world that watches and part of which mourns and part of which protests, and yet this continued crime of the settler colony of Israel, it's still here. And it's still getting $2 billion deals with Elbit Systems to support its military industry by the UK. It's still enjoying every kind of military and diplomatic and political support. And we need to stop it. We need to smash this settler colony before it smashes all the rest of us.
Many congratulations, Hazem. Can we give it up for Hazem one more time? And now, please join me in welcoming back Dr. Ashjan Ajour, this time to present our next award, the Creative Awards.
Memo Palestine Book Awards 2025 Creative Award winner is Youssef El Jamal. Mabruk. Just like to present a book. So we are honored to present the Creative Award to a writer whose work stands as both testimony and resistance. Youssef El Jamal has devoted his creative voice to preserving the memory and legacy of Rifat Al-Arir. If I Must Die, Rifat's collection of poetry and prose transforms grief into powerful narrative of resistance. It reminds us that storytelling can make death not as ending, but the spark of a tale that demands to be told. And this is what Rifat Al-Arir said when he said, "If I die, you must live to tell my story." Though his writing, translation, and storytelling, Youssef builds bridges between worlds, offering readers deep insight and a sense of a shared humanity. His work shows that creativity is not only an artistic, but a commitment to truth and the power of narrative to confront injustice. We celebrate Youssef today for his remarkable contribution. Please join me in congratulating Youssef El Jamal, the recipient of this Creative Award this year.
Thank you very much. This award is about Rifat Al-Arir. It's the honor of my life to have known Rifat. And it's the honor of life that I was his student. And we have 4 or 5 his students with us in the audience tonight. To Rifat Al-Arir and his family. To Palestine. To Gaza. Good evening, everyone. Standing here tonight, I am deeply humbled to accept the Palestine Book Awards by the Middle East Monitor for editing If I Must Die by Dr. Rifat Al-Arir. This is not only a recognition of a book, it's an act of remembrance. It is a moment to honor a voice that refused to be silenced and a tale that continues to breathe life into the conscience of the world. Rifat Al-Arir was not only a poet, he was a father, a grandfather, a teacher, a storyteller, and a witness to the Gaza genocide. Through his words, he offered us, his students and readers from all over the planet, more than verses. He offered us a mirror. In If I Must Die, he painted the enormity of loss, resistance, and love into a few haunting lines. But within those lines lives an entire people's struggle for dignity and freedom, an insistence on memory and a defiant tenderness that transcends the boundaries of genocide and geography. Editing Rifat's work was not about polishing language. It was about protecting it. Every comma, every breath, every word carried a weight of history, storytelling, and a pulse of courage. My task was simply to compile Rifat's work, to honor him the same way he honored me and thousands of his students when he was alive and after he was murdered, and to protect his legacy and honor his family. Because storytelling, as Rifat taught us, is not a luxury, it's existence. Rifat believed that stories are our last defense against erosion. When homes crumble and histories are rewritten, stories endure. They cross borders that walls cannot contain. His poem, If I Must Die, now belongs to all those who have ever struggled to be free. To all who understand that even in death, words can outlive destruction. Tonight, this award belongs to Rifat, his family, and his students. It belongs to his daughter, Shayma, who he wrote the poem, If I Must Die, for, but she was murdered by Israel along with her newborn child and husband. It belongs to his students who continue to write to his readers who carry his lines and his tale, the tale of Gaza, like a heartbeat. And to all editors, translators, and storytellers who know that their work is important during the silence of many. So thank you for recognizing not only the labor of Rifat, but also the power of storytelling to defy silence. May we continue to carry Rifat's words forward to tell stories that heal, stories that resist, stories that remind us that even in the face of death, Rifat's dark sense of humor will always prevail. Thank you again, and allow me to invite the students of Dr. Rifat in the audience to join me for a minute here.
Many congratulations, Yusuf. Before we move on, we'd like to take a moment to remember and honour the late Dr. Rifat Al-Arair. Please join us as we watch a short video on his life and legacy.
If we stop caring about stories, if we stop telling our stories, if we stop listening to our parents, we create space, we create vacuum for others to occupy this virtual space in our past, in our heart.
If I must die, you must live to tell my story, to sell my things, to buy a piece of cloth and some strings. Make it white with a long tail, so that a child somewhere in Gaza, while looking heaven in the eye, awaiting his dad who left in a blaze and bid no one farewell, not even to his flesh, not even to himself, sees the kite, my kite you made, flying up above, and thinks for a moment an angel is there, bringing back love. If I must die, let it bring hope. Let it be a tale.
He transcended the role of a mere educator and a teacher. He was a mentor, a beacon of wisdom and guidance, a loving father and husband, and a compassionate son. Rifat's presence enriched the lives of hundreds, if not thousands, of students. His influence extended far beyond the confines of the classroom. Rifat wasn't just a teacher. He was a friend, a confidant. He was someone who loved to support his students and who believed strongly in the potential of each student.
I will remember him for his love for storytelling, his love for Palestine, his firm belief that Palestine will be freed and that we'll see it free, and that the way to do that is to keep talking about Palestine, to keep telling and narrating the stories of Palestine and the people of Palestine.
If people are asking how was the Holocaust allowed and other genocides in Africa and across the world, now you can see this live on TV, live on social media. Palestinians, whole blocks destroyed, hospitals, schools, businesses. We are speaking about thousands and thousands of housing units destroyed by Israel. So my message to the free people of the world is to move, to pressure, to mobilize, and to take to the streets. We speak about thousands, hundreds and thousands of Israeli bombs and shells targeting all areas of the Gaza Strip. The kids can't sleep, the kids can't eat, the kids can't even speak. Most of the time they're just mute, silent, shaking out of fear, sometimes whimpering because of how close the bombs are wherever you are in Gaza.
Thank you. And in the words of his student Ahmed Nihad, who is with us here today, he said, to honor Dr. Rifat Al-Arair, we have to keep talking about Palestine. We have to keep telling and narrating stories about Palestine. And so, to continue with the program, to present our next awards, the Countercurrent Awards, please welcome Professor Penny Green, and she will be presenting 2 awards here tonight.
If we stop caring about stories,
carefully. Thank you all very much, and many thanks to Memo for organising this wonderful event this evening. The first award that I want to present is, under the Countercurrents title, is to Omar El-Akkad for One Day. This book could have won on its title alone. I think never has a title captured so brutally and so eloquently the essence of what is to follow. One day, and of course that isn't the only part of the title, it just takes a long time to read it all out. It's an urgent, astonishingly powerful and beautifully articulated book which forces upon us an uncomfortable reckoning with the routine forces that actually normalise genocide. It uncompromisingly exposes the deeply embedded racist structures of colonialism and capitalism, its brutal parent, to explain the persistence of humanity's silence in the face of unspeakable atrocity. This wonderful book is perhaps the most cogent analysis you will find as to why never again is an utterly meaningless platitude. So Omar, many, many congratulations. And Omar will now read something from the book, or... I'm the worst prepared author on earth. Please come, worst prepared author.
Thank you very much, Professor. There is no universe in which I deserve to be in the same list as these exceptional writers and their exceptional books, all of which will be remembered long after this is forgotten. It's very difficult to think in celebratory terms, going into year 2 of an unmitigated slaughter, year 3 of an unmitigated slaughter, a slaughter that is not only the logical extension of this colonial enterprise, but of every colonial enterprise. Nonetheless, I can tell you without hyperbole that this is the greatest honor of my professional career, and that being here over the last 2 days has been one of the very few joyous experiences in what has otherwise been a nightmarish moment. We've been asked to read. I was very poorly prepared and did not bring a book. Thank you, Khalid, for the book. You're never going to see this again. I'm going to sell it afterwards. I'm just going to read the first couple of pages. She is fog-colored when they find her. She believes she is ended. Like porters in service of some grotesque nobility, 6 men carry the stretcher out of something cavernous, something that used to be a home. And she, a girl of 9 or 10, is whisked away. Sitting on the stretcher, dazed and bloodied, she looks off to the side. She appears to be searching. The men who carry the stretcher move with urgency, as if the doing of care, of gentleness, can undo what has happened to this girl, to this place, to the bodies yet to be dug from beneath the rubble. Someone nearby asks God for revenge. Perhaps God is here somewhere, also searching. A soldier I met years ago, who made the study of industrial violence his hobby, once told me the first thing that kills when a bomb goes off isn't shrapnel or fire. It's the overpressure wave, air forced violently outward from the site of the blast. What you're supposed to do, he said, is drop to the ground and cover your ears. Breathe out. Empty your lungs before the air collides with and flattens them. Of course, if you're close enough, nothing you do or don't do will make any difference at all. He said the force of the overpressure wave weakens in proportion to the cube of distance from the site of impact, which is to say, the most effective thing you can do to avoid getting killed by a missile or a mine or a grenade is to be far away when it goes off. How do you do that, I asked. Do what? Know when a thing like that is about to happen. Know to be far away. Well, he said, and trailed off. A few minutes later, he was telling the story of a freak accident his daughter had suffered as a toddler, how carrying her to the emergency room was the scariest thing he'd ever experienced. Even in his line of work, even with all he'd seen, the scariest thing. As the men carry the girl out of what used to be her home, she asks if they're going to take her to the cemetery. One of the men says, "Masha'Allah, Masha'Allah." In literal translation, the word means what God wills. A closer approximation of meaning, of one meaning, is something like, what has happened is what God willed. But English, tasked with a word like this, turns stiff and monophonic, and masha'Allah is orchestral. To any ear that grew up on this language, it is clear that what the man means when he says this word is something else entirely, something instantly familiar to generations who've heard it spilling out the mouths of beaming grandmothers at the end of piano recitals and graduation ceremonies and at the first sight of a newborn. Used this way, it finds its principal purpose as an expression of joy. Look at this wonderful thing God has done. MashaAllah. Language, too, forces the air from the lungs. Thank you so much.
We had 2 awards in the countercurrents genre. And the second award goes to Mohammed El-Kurd, who unfortunately can't be here tonight. And his book is Perfect Victims and the Politics of Appeal. This book brilliantly challenges the Western narrative, which, when speaking of Palestinians, utterly denies those same Palestinians the possibility of their own self-narration, particularly as it relates to resistance and victimhood. In order to become a suitable, or what El-Kurd calls a perfect victim, Palestinians must be cast as weak, vulnerable, powerless. The perfect victim, he argues, is an impossible and dangerous standard which must ignore Palestinian resistance as it takes place on the ground. The trope of the perfect victim, he argues, distracts our gaze away from the Israeli perpetrators of genocide and instead focuses our gaze on the victim and particular kinds of victims that he writes about. Palestinians, he writes, are only to be humanized by their proximity to innocence, i.e., whiteness, civility, wealth, compromise, collaboration, non-alignment, non-violence, helplessness, futurelessness. So unfortunately, as I said, Mohammed can't be here with us tonight to accept the award, but we have his publisher who is coming onto the stage now and who's going to read a little from the book. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. So it's a great honor to be here again at the awards, and a great honor to, a very undeserved honor to accept this on behalf of Mohammed. He did send a few words. He said, "Thank you so much for this award. It's really humbling and exciting, especially that it is a Palestine Book Award. I wish I could be there in person with all of you next time. My intention with this book was to try as much as I can to contribute to raising the ceiling of our discourse, the ceiling of what is permissible for us in media, culture, knowledge production. I didn't write it as a manifesto, but as an inquiry, and I hope the hard questions inside the book and the difficult conversations that it inspired will resonate. And of course, this book wouldn't have been possible without the village that helped write it. I want to thank them all, but especially my editor, Brekna, who tolerated me being an unbearable perfectionist. Thank you. So I'm just going to read the epilogue of the book. Bear with me. It's called Rain is Coming. I read that in Gaza they've opened a new kindergarten in the north, a phoenix of sorts, and I want to believe that there is already a clean scent of jasmine that follows the teachers as they go about their day. What, if not jasmine, can ease the nagging of children and the nagging of warplanes? I've been holding on to this piece of good news for the past couple of weeks, filling in the blanks with my own speculations. There is jasmine because seeds do not need permission or a ceasefire to germinate. Children nag because that is what children do. What do 5-year-olds learn besides the numbers and the alphabet in the time of genocide? What jokes do they tell to pass the hours? Their vocabulary expands naturally to include words more brutal than invasion, siege, and Nakba. And their teachers, I imagine, tell them that that the past pales in comparison to Gaza's present. Even the rich, those who have not fled, are intent this time around. But there is, and always has been, more to our reality. We are, without doubt, subjects of conquest and colonization, products of circumstance, but we are also so much more than that. At every turn of our bloodied history, we have been brutalized, bereaved, dispossessed, exiled, starved, slaughtered, and imprisoned, but we have, to the world's dismay, refused to submit. For every massacre and invasion, there have been and there are now men and women who pick up their weapons, makeshift and sophisticated, Molotovs, rifles, slingshots, rockets, to fight. There has always been struggle, there has always been jasmine. In parallel, there is also more to our enemy. Zionism, behind the facade of the impenetrable superpower it purports to be, is more vulnerable today than ever. And I do not say this naively. I do not ask that we gloss over our enemy's capabilities or the power of the empires and mercenaries that back it. Nor do I ask that we trivialize the crushing weight of hundreds of thousands of martyrs or glamorize the men confronting tanks and tracksuits and burden them with more than they can handle. Freedom fighters understand that their opponent is Goliath, that the odds are stacked against them, and that they do not have an option but to pick up the stone. But this is a new dawn. Through close inspection, watching state media, listening to the shifting global narrative, witnessing the renaissance of radical movements, even reading the inscriptions in random airport bathrooms, one discovers that this is a new dawn. Zionism may remain a formidable opponent, but it is also an aging, trembling beast, blinded by its own significance, unpredictable as it may be. Sometimes it pounces on you and pierces its fangs in your flesh. Other times it is but a paper tiger. And it is this discovery that not only shatters the myth of colonial invincibility, but also reminds us that liberation is attainable, the future is within reach. Amid the unrelenting airstrikes and the havoc of demolished cities, it might seem frivolous to fixate on the blossoming jasmine, but we owe it to ourselves to look at everything, to look for everything, to see the picture with all of its details. As deadly and treacherous and unrelenting as it is, the Nakba will not last forever. The world is changing because it must. If seeds can germinate in the inferno, so can revolution. On the phone, my mother tells me, rain is coming and God is almighty.
Many congratulations to Omar Al-Aqad and Muhammad Al-Kurd, and thank you, Professor Penny Green, for that beautiful presentation. I would now like to welcome Director Dr. Dawood Abdullah to present the Oral History Awards.
MO's Palestine Book Awards Oral History Award winner, Muhammad Tarbush. And Nada will receive it on his behalf. Nada. I have a few words.
Nada Tarbush wanted to be here tonight, but Storm Claudia has intervened, and so she has asked me, her publisher, to speak on her behalf. And I'm really wonderfully moved to receive this. It is an immense honor, she wanted to say, to accept this award for my Palestine, an impossible exile, on behalf of my late father, Mohammed Tarbush. He would have been proud to be among so many exceptional authors who are here this evening and whose words give voice to our struggle and our hopes. And I, Nada, would like to thank the organizers of the Palestine Book Awards for their tireless work to center Palestinian stories and voices in the midst of our constant dehumanization, particularly against the backdrop of the genocide in Gaza. As a child, when I first heard my father's story, I knew nothing about Palestine, nor did I understand all that grown-up talk about exile and refugees. But I was mesmerized by the story he recounted. It was at once tragic and dramatic, but also amusing and inspiring. And I saw my father as a hero. Growing up, his story had a significant impact on me, and I kept nagging him to write it down. During the COVID lockdowns, he finally did. Yet, as fate would have it, time was not on his side. And my father sadly passed away in January 2022. My only consolation was that I held in my hands the manuscript of his memoirs that he had written during the final years and days of his life. I found solace in dedicating my time to getting this book published, and I'm overwhelmed with emotion that the journey has culminated in this award. If I could speak to him right now, I would say, Baba, I'm glad you gave in to my relentless nagging and wrote down your story. You are no longer here to witness it, but your last words to the world have reached far and wide, and I'm proud of you as ever. I'm grateful to House Publishing, so to me, and to the judges, readers, and all others who have shared in my father's journey. I chose a passage about the Nakba to read to you this evening, as it is so tragically evocative of our ongoing Nakba. And if you permit me, I will read it to you now. Before, fear for the children had been something they would relish, a thrill of excitement, listening to some of grandfather's outlandish stories, a groping in the dark that was almost an indulgence. But this present, incapacitating fright was no child's fear, to be dispelled by a mother's soothing, reassuring smiles. This was now the painful knot of a stomach contracting, which signaled the recognition of an existential threat. We must go on as quickly as we can, was the mantra for young and old. Goats clambered across the rocks beside the silent moving mass until they realized they were no longer needed and were left staring after the departing crowd like bored elderly people. Grandfather's breathing was labored, his soft old face contorted with exertion. It seemed impossible that he would be able to make it up the slope. The village lingered beneath them as they followed the winding upward path. For such a large crowd, they were notably silent. The only sound was that of crying babies and the elderly ladies rapidly murmuring prayers. Grandmother was shaking violently, her hands stiff like big claws as she held on to one of the younger children. Yusuf hugged the bundle of rugs that he had been assigned to him, as much to comfort himself as to carry some useful items. Night was creeping up on the evening. It would soon be dark with that very sudden disappearance of the sun that signifies the end of day in Palestine. And the crowd went on, clutching their meager bundles of belongings. Perhaps they were after us now. Everybody was silently thinking, maybe lying in wait among the hills stretching ahead. Who were they, these people who wanted to take the land? All who were on that journey that evening were filled with dread and confusion. Grandmothers kept stopping and whispering in a quavering voice, "What's that?" But all that could be heard was a shuffle of the others' footsteps. The dense crowd of villagers had thinned, but along the path, and our family was now at the end of the procession because grandfather's progress was so painfully slow. He kept pausing for breath and frequently had to be helped over the numerous small obstacles. His breathing was growing fainter and shallower. There was a sound as Mother opened the flask, and he jerked as she splashed her face with water. In agony from his swollen joints, he begged, "You must leave me here. I'm only holding you back." It was not for another 2 hours that he could get him to carry on. Later, as we carried grandfather along, he moaned, "Oh, I should have stayed in Beit Natif." Thank you for honoring the late Mohamed Tarbouch. Thank you very much.
Many congratulations to Mohamed Tarbouch, and thank you so much to his publisher for honouring us today and sharing the beautiful words of his daughter Nada. Next, we move to a very special honour, the Gaza Global Impact Award, and please allow me to welcome to the stage our judge Firas Abu Hilal to present this award.
Good evening again. This year, amid the live televised genocide in Gaza, the judges decided to dedicate an award for what we call the Global Impact of Gaza, or Gaza Global Impact Award. This award is dedicated for works and books who played a role to change the narrative and also the discourse about Palestine all around the globe. With that being said, this year, the Gaza Global Impact Award goes to Pankaj Mishra for his book, The World After Gaza. Pankaj's book is a remarkable historical and moral recount to what Mishra calls an extensive moral breakdown. It is a great mixture of history, political analysis, creativity, courage, and moral compass, which aim to decolonize the modern history of Europe, Asia, and the so-called the Middle East. Pankaj Mishra is an Indian novelist and author. He has published many books, including India in Mind, Temptation of the West, and From the Ruins of Empire. Unfortunately, Mishra can't attend today, and his publisher, Sean Hayes, will receive his award. Please welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a privilege and an honor to be here with you celebrating all of these remarkable books. My name is Sean Hayes. I'm an editor at Fern Press, and we are Pankaj's extremely proud publishers. He unfortunately couldn't be here this evening, but I am going to read a short part from the extract of the epilogue of The World After Gaza. The epilogue is called Hope in a Dark Time. For some time now, our exalted ideas about our countries, whether in India, Israel, the United States, or Europe, have been in a state of collapse. The world as we have known it, moulded since 1945 by the beneficiaries of slavery, colonialism, and anti-colonial nationalism, has been crumbling. Far-right mobilizations in the United States, France, and the United Kingdom, as well as in the former Axis powers of Germany and Italy, speak of an irreversible crisis, the scapegoating of minorities, immigrants, Muslims, trans people, threatens a recrudescence of the pathologies of modernity that blighted the first half of the 20th century. Yet again, political, corporate and media institutions show, this time across a broader swathe, a contemptuous face to individual conscience, to judgments of right and wrong. In the East as well as the West, the global North and the global South, we have been called to fresh struggles for freedom, equality and dignity, and to create a world with less misery. But it is Gaza that has pushed many to a genuine reckoning with the deep malaise of their societies. It is Gaza that has quickened their understanding of a decrepit world which no longer has any belief in itself, and which, concerned merely with self-preservation, tramples freely on the rights and principles it once held sacred, repudiates all sense of dignity and honour, and rewards violence, lies, cruelty, and servility. At the same time that Gaza induces vertigo, a feeling of chaos and emptiness, it becomes, for countless powerless people, the essential condition of political and ethical consciousness in the 21st century, just as the First World War was for a generation in the West. The fear of catastrophic defeat weighs in the minds of these protesters. They have not changed, and possibly won't change, opinion in a hardened Western mainstream. But then, Amory himself, when he addressed the miserable conscience of his time, was not at all speaking with the intention to convince. I just blindly throw my word onto the scale, whatever it may weigh. Feeling deceived and abandoned by the free world, he kept speaking in order that the crime become a moral reality for the criminal, in order that he be swept into the truth of his atrocity. For those opposing Israeli acts of savagery and the Western propaganda by omission and obfuscation cannot aim for much more. They risk permanently embittering their lives with failure, but their expressions of outrage and feats of solidarity may have somewhat alleviated the great loneliness of the Palestinians. They also hold out some hope for the world after Gaza. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to Pankaj Mishra, and thank you so much, Sean, for joining us tonight. And now we arrive at the penultimate awards of the night, the Memoir Awards. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Afaf Jabiri, Judge of the Palestine Book Awards, to present this honour.
Thank you very much, Diane. Masal khair. Good evening, everybody. The book, the award I'm presenting today is the Memoir Award. But before announcing the winner, I want to say that this book, in addition to engaging with themes related to the body, identity, self-discovery, it does something, at least for me, actually more. It complicates what is already complicated, which is, what does it mean to be a Palestinian? And I think, as Edward Said and many others said, that every Palestinian has a story, and every Palestinian should tell their stories, regardless where they are. And I meet many Palestinians here in London and all over the world, and those who live particularly in the West, and who think that they live in a privileged life. They haven't seen any pain. They haven't witnessed what we have seen in Gaza, or they haven't been through the checkpoints, or they haven't been living in 1948 areas as second-class citizens, that they don't deserve to tell their stories because their stories are not worthy. If they actually think so, they really need to read this book, because the journey to self-discovery can become a form of resistance and defiance. And I'm really, really honored to announce this award of the memoir for Sarah Azizeh, The Hollow Half. Please join me in congratulating her.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rafif. Thank you all. This is also the honor of my life to echo one of my fellow awardees. Thank you so much, and thank you for those words. It is true that the experience of the diaspora comes with a lot of specific complications. And as someone last night said to me, we need to stop creating hierarchies between us and boundaries between us, because Palestine is whole. It is whole between us and among us, and we are Palestine, and we must hold that and declare that. And as Fayaz, the son of Ghassan Kanafani, asked, am I Palestinian? And he was born outside of Palestine to a mother who was Danish. She answered unequivocally, yes, you are Palestinian. And so I just want to say, just because you gave me that, strength to say that yes, we are all Palestinian, and we all belong to Palestine, and we are all a part of freeing her, inshallah. And yeah, this book is my small offering. The dedication says, to love and to Gaza, words fail. So what I have presented in the form of this book is inadequate, but it is a work of my attempt at profound love as expressed through art. So this is for Hurriya, my sittu. This is for Baba. This is for Gaza. This is for my family in Palestine. Zuhair, Sabah, Haneen, Nabil, Basil, Ibrahim, Haytham, Heba, Samir, Mahmoud, and our hundreds more. I'm going to read a small piece. I was going to read something about Min and Niksa, but we've had some heaviness, and so I'm going to read a short passage about my father's first return to Palestine, because we need to be practicing return in every way and in all the ways possible. It's one return after another. We're counting down until the great return, inshallah. So Ziyad is my father, Ibtis is our ancestral town, so you'll hear those names. And Hurriya is my grandmother. It was with his mother that Ziyad returned to Palestine. The Israelis, for reasons never given, had banned Musa for life. But by the time Ziyad reached 16, Hurriya was determined to visit home. As mother and son approached the border, she instructed him, as he would one day instruct me, to be placid in the presence of soldiers. But when the border guard told him, "You're not Palestinian, you're Ghazan," Ziyad snapped back without a pause. "No, I'm Palestinian." "No, you're Ghazan." "No." Hurriya squeezed his shoulders. They crossed over with two bowed heads. Nearly 10 years had passed since Ziyad and Hurriya left Dir al-Balah, and their return reached my father like a flood. Tight joints softened in the familiar air, salt breeze a caress. Walking, their bodies traversed years, wavering between a gone time and what remained. Ziyad thrilled at every overheard voice, the shape of the Ghazawiya dialect filling the air. He felt an urge to follow every stranger, to press their arms and gush. إحنا أهل أنا واحد منكم بالله تاخذ بإيدي. Their relatives greeted them with joyful shouts. Arms enwrapped their limbs and necks, kisses and dua like warm rain. Aunts clasped Ziyad's face, exclaiming at his growth. Children clucked and spun. The travelers dropped suitcases swollen with gifts, sank onto seat cushions, aching after 3 days journeying by land. Circled by her kin, Hurriya surged with life. She answered their clamor with laughter and assurances that the two had arrived unharmed. I'm going to jump a little. Night after night, over pots of endless sweetened chai, history swam into him. His mother and her relatives turned for hours to reminiscing, trading long, layered tales of Ibdas, of a time before the wars. Sometimes she startled Ziad, flashing the smile of another age. Word by word, they raised a world inside him. There, a new hunger grew. The occupation had changed Gaza. Everywhere, the work of theft was plain. Illegal Jewish settlements appeared in both Gaza and the West Bank, bringing thousands of Zionists into their midst. But one strange blessing arrived with the occupation. Because the Israelis declared all land for themselves, Gaza became, briefly, relatively, porous. For a time, it became possible to travel from the Strip to the West Bank and even territories lost in the Nakba. The territories called Israel by many, but which Palestinians referred to as the inside, or 1948. A refusal. The Zionist entity was an actor, an idea, but the land knew its name. And so Ziad found himself swept by relatives beyond the borders of his memory. Through their day trips outside the Strip, Palestine began to sprawl. In mere hours, he might find himself playing soccer in Hebron or swimming in Tel Aviv. Another strange intimacy. Palestine was far vaster than he had ever seen, and yet all of it was so close. The long occupation has succeeded in changing us from children of Palestine to children of the idea of Palestine, wrote Murid Barghouti. I have always believed, he goes on, that it is in the interest of an occupation, any occupation, that the homeland should be transformed in the memory of its people into a bouquet of symbols. That summer, Ziad's homeland gathered, widened. It built itself in the sand behind his ears, the fried fish in his throat. The child of Gaza was growing, a son of Palestine. One more, is there a little longer? One more minute. One day, in the weave of food, rest, and conversation, Hurriya's cousin made a suggestion. Why not drive the two visitors to Ibdas? Ziad was eager. His mother quietly agreed. The drive took less than 2 hours. On the way, their eyes scanned for signs of the Israeli army, their bodies tensing with each blind curve and cresting hill. Even when obeying the law, the occupied body is still trespasser, and at any moment might be prey. Even so, the mood was lively as memories unrolled with the road. Hurriya and her cousin conjured gone landmarks. Here was Beit Affa. That way was Julis. Then it was their own trees they saw. A crooked palm and broad sycamore watched, silent, as mother led son from the car. Where 91 houses once stood, they found crushed walls, dismembered rooms. The ground was studded with broken stone, each one a frozen gesture, its meaning expelled. Amid the wreckage, Hurriya called to memory. Down here was the diwan. That way was our field. Her words stirred the hot, still air. A portal opened in her speech, past stepping through. Half homes rose from their knees, the streets swept clean of debris. Hurriya rose, too, her back straightening with something like joy, an offering of pride. Ziad watched her with new eyes. All his years, he had grown in the penumbra of her grief. Its blue light washed his world, its rays cast obliquely from the rim of an eclipse. There were many sorrows he had names for: their departure from Gaza, his father's harshness, the cruel words thrown at Palestinians by sneering Saudi boys. But he had not understood that these were only shadows, the jagged, inverted silhouette of the life he might have lived. Dimness is only half as dark without knowledge of the sun. For a few hours, he walked in the light of what almost but never was. The drive home was silence. Years collapsed into minutes, retracing catastrophe. Thank you so much.
Congratulations, Sada. Really looking forward to read your book, and that was very inspiring. And thank you so much to Dr. Afef as well for your presentation and powerful words and message. I completely agree. I think every Palestinian should tell their story, even if we do feel unworthy, even if we do live in the diaspora. And so, to publishers here in the room, if you want to help this Palestinian get her story out, you can have a chat with me outside after. And upgrade me from host to writer to winner. But thank you so much all. We are now reaching the final awards of the night and the most distinguished awards of the evening, the Lifetime Achievement Award. Dr. Dawood Abdullah actually mentioned his name at the beginning. I'm not sure how many people were listening. He already announced the winner. But while he is not with us in person, we will honor his incredible contributions with a short video about his life and work. And please also join me in welcoming Professor Noor Mastalha to the stage for this presentation of special recognition. Thank you.
مساء الخير للجميع ولكل الفائزين ولكل القائمة المشتركة. I'm not going to carry on in Arabic. It gives me great pleasure to receive the Lifelong Award this year on behalf of a legendary Palestinian figure, Professor Walid Khalidi. Professor Khalidi can't be with us this evening. He has celebrated his 100th birthday in July, something which gives us a lot of hope. Walid is so famous, and when I met him for the first time in the late 80s, he was already very famous and so distinguished. He had taught for Oxford University, for Harvard University, for the American University of Beirut. He had founded the Institute of Palestine Studies even before the founding of the PLO, more than 60 years ago. And I was a young academic and very nervous to meet him in London in the late 80s. And I came with my project, and I tried to explain to him kind of in a nervous way. And Walid said, go for it. He was so kind and so encouraging and so exciting to meet. He also comes from a distinguished Palestinian family, the Khalidis of Jerusalem, one of our most learned families actually in Palestine. And his father was the head of the Arab College before 1948, and Walid grew up in mandatory Palestine and lived next to the college. And Walid and I also discuss what I call his magnum opus, All That Remains, the Palestinian villages occupied and destroyed in 1948 by Israel. I think this is one of the most important books to be published on modern Palestine. It's a monumental achievement, and he was working on it at the time, late 80s. And Walid and I went on to work on a number of projects. One of them is actually less known to people. It was actually about the site of the American Embassy in Jerusalem, the proposed site of the American Embassy in Jerusalem, the way the American Department of State actually was proposing it. And Walid came to me and said, look, Noor, this is actually private Arab land. I know it personally. My father used to teach at the Arab College there, and the land It was near our college. We know them, we know the people, we have got the taboo for the private land and all these Palestinians, but I do want you to go to the Public Record Office, which is the National Archives in Kew, and just look at the material. And I went there and I uncovered masses of documents, also maps of these lands. And I went to Walid and I said, Walid, we've got them. We can stop the embassy. Of course, I was slightly naive that we could say. Walid did publish the paper and the maps in the 90s, and we were really hopeful we can stop that bloody embassy, American embassy, to move to Jerusalem. At the time, no one heard about someone called Donald Trump, by the way. I wasn't familiar with that name. What the State Department did actually is not stopping the embassy, but moving the site of the embassy at the time. It was a proposed site. So actually, the research carried out by Walid with my work at the Public Record Office here in London, in Kew, actually did change things, but did not stop the embassy from being constructed in Jerusalem, and did not stop the what Walid calls the Caligula in the Oval Office from moving the embassy, and we know what happened then. So I think this is one of the things which people actually don't know much about it, me working with Walid. And when Dawood asked me to accept this award on behalf of Walid, I think Dawood didn't actually know how much I knew Walid and how much we collaborate, we work together so intimately. What I'm going to do here is not to keep stand here and sing the praises of Professor Walid Khalidi, but just to read his message to us this evening. And I'm going to try to read it without censorship, okay? So he wanted us, me to read it, so I will read it. I'm deeply touched to have been chosen for the lifelong award of the Palestine Book Award. It gives me distinct satisfaction to accept this honor, for which I am truly grateful. I apologize for not being able to attend this award in person. I am delighted that my dear friend, Dr. Noor Masalha, whom I hold in the highest esteem, has graciously agreed to accept this award. My head fell in Jerusalem. This is actually an expression we have in Arabic for people who are born in Jerusalem. And Walid was born in Jerusalem 100 years ago, 7 years after the Balfour Declaration. So Walid really went on, followed almost the last century of our struggle, our Palestinian struggle against the Zionist movement and against the British. Walid goes on to say the caravan of all these years has served only to confirm the vastness of British folly as the midwife of Zionism. The British have been the architect of our Palestinian ruination. And the endless upheavals that have plagued the Middle East since that wicked declaration. Zionism has treacherously transferred its allegiances to the shores of America, but the foundational guilt, the original sin, remains with the British, and the stain upon the soul of the British will remain until eternity. Time is perspective. As I survey the scene from my own perspective, the Palestinian cause stands now at a crossroad. On the one hand, there is the overwhelming majority of humankind, represented by the 160 countries which recognize and applauds Palestine and the statehood in Palestine. On the other hand, there is a tiny minority, the minuscule minority led by the global superpower, America, which is adamantly opposed. And Israel, basking in the total, limitless, and unfettered support of this global patron, is virtually the 51st state of the United States. It has become the proxy of American bully and the iron fist for the whole area between the Eastern Mediterranean and Afghanistan. With a Nero or a Caligula in the Oval Office, these are the words of Professor Khalidi, occupying the Oval Office, it is impossible to tell how long this eerie situation between the majority of humankind and this minority will endure. Much of the responsibility, however, is also with the Arab rulers and with the specific Arab rulers of the Gulf states. Those people who are normalizing with Israel, and those people the White House is banking on to normalize with Israel and to deny our Palestinian rights. By signaling their readiness to marginalize with Israel, and they are reinforcing Donald Trump's contempt for our rights. But the Palestinians are also partly to blame, and we have some responsibility. The continuing Hamas-Fatah rift is both an existential threat to us and a criminal offense, giving to the life and death struggle in which we Palestinian people are engaged in. Mahmoud Abbas has long exhausted his capacity to act. It is therefore for him to leave the stage, and the sooner he does, the better. The Palestinian struggle is both territorial and ideological. As a founder of the Institute of Palestine Studies more than 60 years ago, the first Arab world independent think tank and research institution, I salute your dedication to quality publishing and book awards. The spoken and the written words of our arsenal in the Shatat diaspora. We have already made spectacular progress on university campuses across the United States, a progress which made itself also manifest in the way the General Assembly treated with contempt Benjamin Netanyahu, and in the way most people actually walked out when he gave his address. In conclusion, may your foundation continue to prosper and support for the most just of all just causes, the cause of Palestine. I love this actually phrase, the last phrase, the most just of all just causes in the world is the cause of Palestine. And thank you so much for being good listeners. Now, we haven't got Walid here to give him in person, so I probably will have to ask Dawood to try to post it or to kind of communicate this to. But on behalf of Walid, thank you, Palestine Book Awards, and thank you, Middle East Monitor, and thank you, Dr. Dawood, and all the judges, and congratulations to all the winners, and all those shortlisted, by the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Noor Masalha. We will now watch a short video about Professor Khalidi.
Born in Jerusalem in 1925, Professor Walid Khalidi came from a family of jurists, scholars, and educators whose roots in the city stretch back centuries. Educated at the University of London and at Oxford, he became one of the foremost Palestinian historians of the modern era. His voice has long been one of conscience and clarity, joining scholarship with integrity and a life of service. At Oxford, he began his academic career lecturing in Islamic studies while pursuing his research in Islamic philosophy. In 1956, he resigned his post in protest against Britain's role in the invasion of Egypt. That moment of principle would define his path moving forward. Soon after, he joined the American University of Beirut, where for 25 years he taught political studies and shaped generations of Arab scholars, thinkers, and diplomats. His academic life continued internationally as a research fellow at Princeton and as a senior participant at Harvard University's Center for International Affairs. In 1963, he co-founded the Institute for Palestine Studies in Beirut, the first independent, non-profit research center of its kind in the Arab world. As its general secretary for more than 5 decades, he nurtured a lasting institution devoted to documentation, history, and memory. Across his career, Professor Khalidi has authored around 30 books and countless articles, always guided by a commitment to truth. Through his research, lectures, and published works, he has preserved the collective memory of the Palestinian people and confronted the forces that seek to erase it. His pioneering volumes, Before Their Diaspora, a photographic history of Palestinians before 1948, and All That Remains, a record of villages depopulated in 1948, stand as monumental acts of remembrance. A destroyer of myths, he exposed the falsehood the Palestinians left their homeland by choice, revealing instead the systematic expulsion of 1948, known as the Nakba. Findings that were later confirmed by Israel's own new historians. Professor Walid Khalidi's legacy reminds us that memory is resistance, knowledge is protection, and that history is a home we must defend.
To all our winners, your words, your creativity, and your courage have inspired us all tonight. A huge thank you to our judges for your time, your care, and your wisdom, and to every single author who was shortlisted this year. Your work keeps the story of Palestine alive in so many powerful, beautiful ways. So thank you, and can we give them all a massive round of applause? Our deep thank you as well to Dr. Ghassan Abu Sitta for honouring us with your presence as tonight's keynote speaker. Your words have moved us deeply and will stay with us. So let's give it up once more for Dr. Ghassan. Thank you as well to the amazing team at Middle East Monitor for pouring your hearts into this event and for keeping this platform thriving year after year. And a very special thank you to the woman behind it all for her tireless organising, dedication in bringing us all together tonight. Let's give it up for Aisha Al-Masri. And so, as we close, let us carry forward what these books teach us. That even when the world tries to bury our stories, we will write them into the earth itself. That even when our voices are silenced, our words will find their way through generations. And that as long as there are Palestinians writing, creating, and dreaming, the story of Palestine will never end. Because every page turned tonight is a heartbeat, every poem is a pulse, every story is a reminder that Palestine lives, not only in its land, land, but in its language, its people, and its everlasting truth. So thank you to everyone here tonight for celebrating with us and for keeping these stories alive. Together, let us carry this spirit forward today, tomorrow, until liberation. Thank you.